Hello, and welcome to Executive Mosaic's video interview series. I'm Summer Maya, and here to speak with me today is Rob Carey, President of Cloudera Government Solutions. Rob, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're seeing a major trend in the government towards data centricity. Can you give us an overview of the public sector's data journey in recent years?
Good question. It's sort of the summary of data when I was a CIO was a problem to worry about standards and the actual specific elements of data that then flew into tables that then created, opportunities to align within big ERPs, things like that. So we were worried about the micro and not necessarily the macro. And the macro being, can the agencies deliver decisions and make intelligent, informed decisions from this plethora of data that they have from these systems and endpoints and what have you. And so the journey has come in the last, let's say, 10 years from data as a micro resource, solving tactical problems, to data at a macro level that can solve problems at the enterprise scale. So standards are now simplified because there are tools that enable the organizations to ingest data from wherever it happens to be, put it into a data lake house, what have you, run analytics on it, and then derive answers out the other side much more easily and quickly than was able to be done 10 years ago, right? So there's been a tremendous movement in the ability to actually manage and utilize data as a strategic asset in the last 10 years.
Rob, you mentioned data is often coming from multiple different sources, and agencies need to really locate and understand it in order to use it properly. What are some of the key challenges and opportunities you're seeing emerge as agencies try to harness this data in motion and use it to drive decisions?
So another good question. So, data, all of our computers at any place on the network create log files, create data. Applications produce data, and then it gets stored in a database, which may be sitting in a legacy data center, now maybe in the cloud. So now to take a holistic view of this data and to be able to make use out of it, use it to render decisions, you have to bring it somewhere. You can't just leave it where it sits. So the ingestion of this data to a central location, to then allow it to be mined and examined and analyzed, maybe with AI, ML, what have you, is really what has to happen, right? And so I think agencies are recognizing that now. As a matter of fact, I know they are. The question is, okay, prioritize where you want to connect your data. I'll use the example of cybersecurity, right? So if all the endpoints in an agency, all the laptops and desktops are producing log files, which are very interesting to people in the security operations center, okay, so now if I move that data into a central location and I can process it before I hand it to the cybersecurity stack, I've enabled the cybersecurity stack to perform better than it had if it just ingested the data itself, because they are not set up. Those tools do this, but maybe not as well and at the scale that the big data platforms can do it. So the ability to then harness the movement, right, and determine, you don't want to have to worry about where the data is. You don't want to have to worry about its format. You want to worry about, I know where it is. I can move it into a place. I can enrich it once it's in a central location, and then I can decide what I want to do with it once it's there.
So you mentioned cybersecurity as a big part of this conversation. What role can cloud play in the federal government's data strategy?
Well, cloud has been around since Vivek Kundra announced cloud first policy 12 years ago. So it does provide a powerful engine for both storage and compute, but it has to meet, in federal space, FedRAMP standards, which is fine, because the security is important, highly important that we are at least as secure as the government networks are being managed inside their fence line, if you will, inside their firewall. So at the end of the day, to be able to harness this data that exists in cloud along with your data centers, you have this hybrid data architecture, right? So everybody's not on one cloud, everybody's not on cloud. So you're staring at the problem and going, as a CIO or a CDO, and you say, My data is where it is. Okay. So the role that cloud plays is an important flexibility capability for that agency to scale up and scale down storage and compute as required, and then also enable access from a lot more locations than is maybe accessible for legacy on-prem guys. So cloud plays a role that enables the right applications and the right data to sit in that flexible storage compute, and keeps the cost where you want it, because everything doesn't need to be in the cloud, right? You actually have to do the business case to determine what goes and what doesn't go. And that's why data tools have to be able to span both legacy and cloud locations to then create the holistic picture for management to then decide what they want to do.
And Rob, you previously served as Principal Deputy CIO for the Department of Defense, and you oversaw the first cloud strategy. Since your time in government, what strides have you seen in how the federal government harnesses cloud, and what do you see for the future of cloud?
Oh, it's an amazing transformation. Cloud has provided the basis of digital transformation of the federal government. Had that not come along, we would be paying for legacy data centers. We would be paying a lot of money. When certain programs required a flexibility to go up or go down, it would be an expensive proposition to have legacy do that. So cloud has been that fundamental change agent in government. Now, as big as government is, and so here we are 12 years later since that edict of everybody go to cloud, and we have FedRAMP, so now we have rules of the road, right? Which are a little tedious to deal with, but they're very valuable because we have to keep security at our forefront. We don't want to bake it in after the fact. We want to build it in from the get-go. So cloud has brought opportunity to the government to utilize data in a different manner than it was able to be utilized in the past. So the ability to store and compute in locations that you don't care about, that you have now COOP capabilities, right? You have backups that you didn't have before. There's many attributes that cloud has brought to the table. When I look at where the Department of Defense was with JEDI, like they were going to let a $10 billion contract for cloud compute workloads in that department. Now JWCC is coming, and they will do the same thing. So that they've got to find a way to get themselves to make use of it where it is appropriate. And then there's places where it's not necessarily appropriate, right? So now you have this tool that you can use as you see fit to then continue your digital transformation and continue the acceleration of services to citizens and services to mission.
Excellent. And Rob, lastly, what advice would you give someone entering your industry today?
To focus on mission, right? When I came to industry a little while back, it's really important to understand you're here. We as a industry member are here to serve the government and to help their problems go away and help them get better. If we are successful at doing that, you will make money, you will make sales. If you are not successful at doing that, similarly, you will not, right? So the focus on the mission of the government agency that you're trying to support is really utmost and important. The second thing that I would bring in is to be patient, right? The government is working as fast as it knows how to work. And so sometimes we think that decisions can be made in seconds, and that's not the case, right? It's a complicated world. Money is appropriated by the Congress. The Congress gets the money to the individual agencies. And then, of course, lots of machinations occur on that. So patience is an actual virtue. And then obviously the last thing is that I would say is lead, do not manage, right? When you look at the government is looking for help being successful at its job. They're not interested in your quarterly attainment metrics. They're not interested in your sales numbers. They're interested in things that solve their problems for a fair price, and then they will do it. So leading is much more important than managing. When you start to lead, you realize, hey, I know what their problem is. I know how to solve it. And now I'm going to offer them opportunities to use my software to sell or to solve their problem. period. And if it does, right, it stands a good chance of being bought and then implemented. And now you're partnered with them to make them successful. So focus on mission, be patient, and lead.
Well, Rob, thank you for sharing your insights today and for all the work you do at Cloudera.
Thanks, Summer. Appreciate it.